Today, we're going to talk about mistakes. We're talking critical, massive mistakes. We all have them. They start off really small, but they can have a big impact. So, when it comes to retirement solutions for all ages, I want you to be aware of what you might want to look out for. I want you to have answers to questions that you don't even know what the question is. That's why I'm taking this year-long course for seniors and senior transition specialists, trusts, wills, 1031 exchanges, everything having to make me a certified senior real estate planner. Now, what is a senior real estate planner? Well, that's kind of like a financial planner for real estate. Your biggest investment, a lot of the times, more so than what the financial planner does with stocks and bonds. The majority of people, I believe it's 60 to 80% of their wealth is in real estate. And then you have those people that make millions of dollars in the stock market. But the majority of millionaires have made their money through real estate. So let's talk a little bit more about being a senior real estate planner. I help seniors and their families downsize, relocate, transition to assisted living. We work with a family of companies that offer solutions that are complete to help with all of the stuff inside the home, protecting the assets, repairs, and preparing the home for the market, and ultimately selling the home for top dollar, if that's your goal. Some people just want the headache gone and they will sell it at a discount. See, we understand the stress and anxiety of moving. That can cause all sorts of different issues that arise, and we are here to help every step of the way. We're part of this large national network across the US where all of us are going through this year-long training. And we can help you whether you're in Asheville, North Carolina, Naples, Florida, Marco Island, out in California, wherever you are. Because that's the other thing is we are helping families. And that just doesn't mean you, it means your parents, your children, your grandchildren, cousins, nephews. We were just talking the other day about this family that bought a fourplex, four different apartment buildings that each family member was living in a different complex. They'll have their own little compound where family can stay close. So, in this episode, we are talking about some of the things that I have discovered when it comes to looking at different aspects, such as a trust, such as your will, such as your health directive, an entire estate plan, because part of being a senior real estate planner is making sure that you know who to talk to when it comes to developing an estate plan. So let's look at some of the mistakes that I have discovered by taking this class and looking at my own real estate and trusts and documents. Here we go. The first thing to keep in mind is the minute your child turns 18, give them the gift of a medical directive. Because if something happens to them, as a parent, you are no longer able to have that information from the doctors and the decisions to make medical decisions for the children. When a child turns 18, as a parent, you lose some of that parental rights. And the best way to solve that solution is to have an 18-year-old have a medical directive. Now, this might take an attorney and a few $100s, but it's well worth it because a simple mistake of not saying, yes, my mom can be my HIPAA release could mean that when something critical has happened, as a parent, you don't find out. Or as the adult child, you don't have your wishes respected because you never told your parents or you never put it in writing for a hospital or doctor. Please do that. And that's the first thing. The second thing is when you do paperwork, make sure to dot the I's and cross the T's. I've talked about trusts, and I'm going to have a trust attorney speak to us and go a little bit further into that. But there's a difference between a will and a trust. A will tells people what you want to happen. But in this day and age, it doesn't work when it comes to the government. If you don't have a trust, your will just kind of is, oh, I hope you do this. Please, please do this for me. But the government, they're going to take a lot more money if you do not have a trust. You're going to go through probate, and that's going to have a public influence, and you're going to have someone like a judge determining what happens to your estate. So please, if you are over 18, don't procrastinate. If you own a home, don't procrastinate. Get a trust. Get a estate plan. Now, the estate plan is more than just a trust. It's more than the medical directives. It is the will so that what you want to happen is explained to people, but the trust is the financial document that fills it in. Okay, that's not a very good description. So that number two is not having a trust can be a problem. Number three, like I said, dotting the I's and crossing the T's, make sure the trust is accurate. For example, you spend $3,000 to $5,000 for an entire estate plan, developing your trust, your medical directives, your wills, everything that goes into your estate plan. But it takes a lot of time and a lot of decisions. And talking about death is wearing on you mentally and sometimes physically. So you work with the attorney, you get the 20 pages or however many long the trust is, and maybe another 20 for the will, and then 1 or 2 pages for the medical and all the other documents. But did you fund that trust? You had all your directions there, but then you have to transfer your home into that trust. You have to have the beneficiary of your checking account go to the trust. All of the different elements that you and the attorney talked about putting into the trust actually needs to be put into it. Okay. So I was reviewing our trust, and I know that our house was put into it. I know that our checking account was a beneficiary. But when I was reading what was actually completed and notarized, signed by witnesses and everything else, there was a blank page as to what was in the trust because that's what had to be done afterwards. So even though they're kind of out there, does it count? I don't know. I've got several appointments coming up with other attorneys and estate planners because since that was done, I've moved twice. And I'm no longer in the same state as a permanent residence, and my trust is down in Florida. So it's kind of complicated and difficult, but I want to say another mistake is not having your trust updated every 3 to 5 years. Or when you have major life changes, if you move, if you have a child, if you have a grandchild, if you get a divorce, if somebody passes away, every single one of these situations, you want to review your trust and will and your entire estate plan. Okay, so let's talk about my other mistake. When we bought the home in Naples, Florida, we bought it from somebody who lived out of the country. And there's a little stipulation that, additional taxes have to be paid for the purchase of the home. And if the foreigner doesn't pay it, then we, the buyers, have to pay it. Well, the attorneys and title companies, they take care of all of that. And she paid the taxes and it's set up as escrow for when it comes up. Well, lo and behold, I get an IRS letter saying that we owe, I think it was $60,000 in taxes. It's like, whoa, wait a minute, wait a minute. And I call up the title company and I'm going, what's going on? Well, it turns out they had spelled my husband's first name wrong, as well as the last name, Johaningsmeir. And they didn't tag it as the same person that is our trust. Well, after the tax situation in the IRS, I had them correct the trust and they made another mistake. Instead of it being Kevin and Ruth Johaningsmeir, it was a different trust name. And that's one of the advantages of having a trust is it's not as public. I don't want my trust being, oh, Kevin and Ruth Johaningsmeir, because everyone knows who that trust is for. It needs to be a little bit more anonymous. And so, therefore, we had to make another change. So, really, double check everything. Who knows? Maybe the Social Security number is inverted and you'll get a $60,000 tax bill because they couldn't find it and they assign you a tax ID number. So those are just a few of the things that I want you to make sure that you double check everything because there are a lot of mistakes that can be made. And I cannot tell you how many people touch your file when you're doing a financing. You have your real estate agent, you have your loan officer, you have the underwriter, you have uh, processors. You have probably 10 different people associated with each of those roles. So it's very important. One person can make a little mistake and that gets passed on to somebody else. And if you've ever made a mistake yourself and it's not something like how do you spell Johaningsmeir? It's like you start doubting yourself. Was it this way or was it that way? Was the middle name Blair or Blaine? Those are the sort of things that if you don't know for sure, double check. Make sure everything is accurate. Next time on Retirement Solutions for All Ages, I will have an interview with a professional to learn more about some of the intricacies, or depending on timing, I'm going to do an episode about the worst days of my life. And that'll go back to one of my or two of my episodes about, basically quitting. It's like, why am I doing this? Well, sometimes you just have really bad weeks. And it might make you feel better if you hear about somebody else's bad week, but it has a happy ending or at least a funny story. Because the more time that passes, the funnier tragedy becomes. So please hit that subscribe button so you don't miss future episodes of Retirement Solutions for All Ages.